Welcome everybody. Today we are going to look at running Greenplum Database on my laptop, which is really exciting. You can finally run Greenplum easily on your laptop. And the way we do this is by running Greenplum or the Greenplum operator in Kubernetes on my MacBook. And that's exactly what we're going to do today and exactly what is depicted here. So I've got my laptop. We're going to run a Kubernetes cluster on my laptop. In this case, we're going to use something called Colima to run it. And the important thing there is it is going to emulate the x86 architecture, which is required on my ARM-based laptop. If you're running an Intel-based laptop, Linux, Mac, Windows, you can just spin up a Kubernetes cluster using something like Kind or Minikube. But in this case, we're going to use Colima. It'll work on Intel-based Macs as well. And then we're going to use the newly GA Greenplum operator to deploy this out to that Kubernetes cluster. And in this case, we're going to deploy a single Greenplum cluster with its coordinator, its brain, and then multiple segments. I think I'll do 3 segments for the sake of this example. You can keep it simple in one run one, but I always like to run a realistic number, and an odd number is always good for quorum. And then today we'll connect with pSQL just to take a look. Now I have put all of these instructions that I'm going to run through today in GitHub, and I will share that in the notes below. It goes through a couple of prerequisites, having Docker, kubectl, etc. It will show you how to export your credentials to be able to pull these images from Broadcom's repository. I've already gone ahead and done this in my terminal, so I won't accidentally leak my credentials, but you can see, you would export your email as well as the key or password that you get from the download sections there. And then we're going to jump right into it. So I actually want to make sure, one key thing is I want to make sure Docker is not running. I can look up in my menu bar, Docker is not running. I want to have it installed. That way I have the CLI, but I don't need it running. I think it'll actually conflict. And then the first thing we're going to do is start up Colima, which Colima is similar to Minikube or Kind in that it is going to run an entire Kubernetes cluster, in this case just a single node, but locally on your laptop. So from here we're going to say Colima start. As I mentioned, the big thing here is it makes it really easy to say we're going to run the x86 architecture, and this is on my ARM-based Macintosh, and it will use emulation behind the scenes to do that. We're going to spin up Kubernetes, and I'm going to give it 6 gigabytes of memory and 6 units of CPU. I'll have to go back and check in and see what the actual unit is. So this will take a couple of minutes as it downloads the pieces it needs and spins up the Kubernetes cluster. I'll go ahead and fast forward this and rejoin you once it is up and running. We are back. That took about 5 minutes, and we now have Kubernetes up and running. So, and Colima will have set my context. So if we do kubectx, we can see it set it to Colima, and we can do a kgit nodes. We see we have one node that is working both as our control plane and as our worker. So from here, we can see we have no pods, or at least nothing outside of the typical Kubernetes pods. So let's go ahead and create a namespace. So we're going to do create namespace, and we're going to do this for Greenplum. And then we will change our default to that namespace And if we do kget pods, we have nothing running. All right, let's go ahead and deploy the Greenplum operator. A couple of things we have to do up front. We need to install Certificate Manager. This will be for managing all our certificates. This instruction is here. CertMan is installed. And now we need to set our credentials. Remember before I exported those to my username and password. So I am going to export that, or rather set that for Helm. And then I need to create a secret in this namespace for Docker polls. And this is so it can pull both the Helm images as well as my OCI images. Helm charts, that is. Okay, so that's just setting the credentials. I've already got this code. And this is the big step to install the operator. We're going to do a Helm install of our operator. And then we will point it at the Helm chart, which I've just provided the credentials for. So we'll do that Helm install. This will install and start up the operator. And at this point, we can start to watch. It'll take a couple of seconds before we start to see too much. We have the pod. So that was actually pretty quick. So it's creating the container, so the pod, which is my operator. We can go ahead and watch this and fast forward until when that container has started up. It is now running, but not quite ready, so we'll continue to watch this. Okay, that was really quick. So we are running. So if we do kget all, it should just still be that operator, and then it has a couple of services. And at this point, we can do a kget gp. We have no clusters running. So let's go ahead and start creating our first Greenplum cluster. So the first thing we need to do is define what we want to deploy, our version. So let's take a look at this file. This is GP version 7.5.2. And I will pull this up in VS Code. And what we're saying here is we're going to want to define a version that we can create, and it's using a specific version and image of Greenplum, as well as the management UI Greenplum Command Center. Back in our shell, we will go ahead and define that version. And then if we go kget gp, what is the command? It is Greenplum version. We see we've defined that one version. And now we can create a cluster out of this. Back in VS Code, I've defined two different clusters. One is a single node, and one is a node with 3 segments. So we're going to use that same version I just defined, and we are going to create it with 3 segments. One key thing to make sure is that you've got the right storage class set, which in Colima on OS X appears to be local path consistently. So let's go ahead and create this. And this will be, so we'll do Kubernetes kubectl create -f, and this will be gpcc, and we want the 3 segment version. Wrong file, so we're not deploying the command center, we are deploying the cluster. And if we do kget all, this will again this is going to take a couple of minutes to kick off, deploy the pods, and get running. So there's two ways I can watch this. The first one is I can actually watch the logs of the controller. So if we do k logs and then give it the controller pod, we can see it going, and we can tail that with a -f. But for now, what I'm going to do is just look at the actual pods and wait until those come up. So we can do k get pods -w. And we now see that it's spinning up the coordinator. We will watch it do this, and then it will spin up the 3 segments. Again, we'll fast forward through that, and I'll join you back when those are running. All right, we are back. So the coordinator is now running. That took a little over 5 minutes. Just looking at the clock here. Yeah, about 4 minutes, 37 seconds roughly. And that was mainly downloading the OCI image for the first time. We're now firing up the segments, and we'll see that this is significantly quicker as it's using the same container image, and it doesn't have to re-download those. So we've got the first one, number 0, the second one, number 1, and we'll fast forward once all 3 are up and running. Okay, we have all 3 segments and the controller. So if we get k get pods again, we will say they are all running. It will take a couple more minutes for the coordinator to finish starting up and become healthy. We can watch k get Greenplum or GP to see that it is not yet running. That will become ready when it is. And again, the other thing we can watch is we can watch the logs, and we'll tail that to see that it is going to continue installing, setting up the controller, and then that will become healthy. So I'm going to watch these logs as well as the pod and Greenplum cluster state, and we'll fast forward to when that is done and healthy. There we go. So our cluster, so if we get the Greenplum clusters, name GP3 is running, and you'll see that whole thing was about 13 minutes. If we do k get pods, we can see the first one is our operator, and then the next 4 items are our cluster, the coordinator, and 3 segments. They're all running, they are all ready. So let's go ahead and connect. So what I want to do is port forward. So we will do k port forward. We will connect to the coordinator on port 5432. So this is going to expose from inside of Kubernetes in its own network, port 5432 to my laptop. And then from there, I can do PSQL connect to the Postgres database. That is the database name in there on localhost. The port's the default 5432, so I don't have to specify it. And the username is gpadmin. Right now there is no password, but I do mention in the docs, if you have a password, you can find it in the secret in the namespace in Kubernetes. So we will go ahead and connect. And now what can we do here? So this is Postgres basics generally. So we can look at the databases. We only have the 3 databases right now, or 1 database and 2 templates. We can look at some namespaces, but actually let's do an exercise so we can actually see some things in here. If you do need more help, you can always do /h for help on SQL, or /# for help on pSQL. And to quit, you can always do \q. It can always be frustrating if you don't know how to get out of the thing. So again, in the example that I will share, we have some instructions on how to play with this thing. So you can connect, and we're going to run this command. So we're going to create a database. So this will create a new database called retail. If we do /L again to list the databases, we see we have a database called retail. We can do /C retail, and this is going to say let's connect to the retail database. We were connected to one called Postgres. And right now we have nothing in here. So if I do /D to look at what objects are in here, like tables, we have nothing. If we look at what we're going to do here, we are going to create a schema called retail. So we're in the retail database. We'll create a schema. It's kind of like a namespace in there. And then we're going to create 3 tables and some data. So if we go back here, we're going to run this file. So this file creates the namespace, creates a product, a customer, and an order table, and then is going to insert some synthetic data in here. Customer 1, customer 2, customer 3, and then we'll be able to query it. It'll run a query as the last thing. So here we've done a select from. But we can look at this now. This becomes more interesting if we do, so we can look at the namespaces. We can see we have a retail namespace. And the way PSQL works is it has a search path, which tells PSQL which of these namespaces to look at by default. So I want to update that. So if we do show search path, we'll see it's searching user and then public. I want to hit retail. So that's where we can say set search path to retail user. And what am I doing? Or public. Helps if I type that correctly. Now if I did /D, we can see by default it's going to pick up the retail schema. So we have a customer, an order, and a product table. And then we can start to query those. So we can look at select, let's do select star from customer. And I don't have to, I should. Best practice is to always type the schema first. You don't have to because I set the search path, but we'll follow best practice here. And I'm just going to do limit 10 so we get a reasonable amount of results back. So we have a whole set of customers. If we look at how many we have, we can say select count star. So we've got 500 customers. We have orders, we have products. So we can look, we have retail.orders. Order. We have 500,000 orders and we have product 500. And this is where you can then start to do all your queries, all your analytics. We're not going to get into that today. This was just one query that I ran, which is going to look for 10 orders where we are joining the order, the product, and the customer. So for each of those orders, we're able to look up who is the customer and what is their email with the join, what is the product, what is that product SKU with the join, and we could always look for a specific order. So we could say where order underscore ID, and I probably need to do o.order_id equals, let's say 9,999. So we're plucking one order out, having it join with the customer ID, the email, and the SKU. And that's just basic SQL. We won't go any deeper today. The only other thing I will show you is I do want to look at what we have running here in Greenplum. So if we look at this table, GP segment configuration. This will show us that this just isn't a Postgres database, but what we actually have here again is the coordinator and then the 3 segments that the data is being distributed across. So again, we are running Greenplum Database on my laptop, which is really exciting because now I can really start to play and learn Greenplum. And we're doing that by running Greenplum in a Kubernetes customer cluster on my ARM-based Mac. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.